Now we turn our attention away from the conquistadors of Spain and explore two lesser known, yet deeply significant colonial powers in the Americas, France and the Netherlands. This short lecture is meant to go along with the Khan Academy video on French and Dutch exploration in the New World. Unlike the Spanish, whose colonization efforts were marked by vast territorial conquest, plantation agriculture, and forced conversion, the French and Dutch took a different path, one shaped by rivers, trade, and alliances with native peoples. This lecture will examine how French and Dutch goals for colonization, especially their desire to profit from the fur trade, led to smaller, more strategically located settlements, and crucially to a different kind of relationship with Native Americans. Rather than subjugate indigenous communities, the French and Dutch often relied on cooperation, intermarriage, and diplomacy to access the resources they sought. We'll see how settlements like New France along the St. Lawrence River and New Netherlands near the Hudson River became vibrant centers of commerce and cultural exchange, and how these interactions influenced colonial policy, native alliances, and ultimately the struggle for power in North America. As we explore these two colonial models, keep in mind how their approach to colonization, focused on economic partnerships rather than domination, set the stage for both cooperation and conflict, and left a distinct legacy that still shapes parts of North America today. Spanish successes in the Caribbean attracted the attention of other European nations. Like Spain, France was a Catholic nation and committed to expanding Catholicism around the globe. In the early 16th century, it joined the race to explore the New World and exploit the resources of the Western Hemisphere. In 1534, navigator Jacques Cartier claimed northern North America for France, naming the area around the St. Lawrence River New France. Like many other explorers, Cartier made exaggerated claims about the area's mineral wealth and was unable to send great riches back to France or establish a permanent colony. Samuel de Champlain made great strides for French exploration of the New World. He explored the Caribbean in 1601 and the coast of New England in 1603, before traveling farther north. In 1608, he founded Quebec, and he made numerous Atlantic crossings as he worked tirelessly to promote New France. Unlike other imperial powers, France, through Champlain's efforts, fostered especially good relationships with native people as they expanded westward. He learned that becoming friendly with the native people was essential to successful trade. Champlain explored the Great Lakes, Hudson Bay, and eventually made it to the Mississippi River. The French made an alliance with the Hurons and the Algonquians. Champlain even agreed to fight for them against their enemy, the Iroquois. The French were primarily interested in establishing commercially viable colonial outposts, so they created extensive trading networks throughout New France. They relied on native hunters to harvest furs, especially beaver pelts, and to exchange these items for French goods like glass beads. The French also dreamed of replicating the wealth of Spain by colonizing the tropical zones. After Spanish control of the Caribbean began to weaken, the French turned their attention to two small islands in the West Indies. By 1635, they had colonized Guadeloupe and Martinique. Though it still lagged far behind Spain, France now boasted its own West Indian colonies with lucrative sugarcane plantation sites and African slave labor. Now let's move on and talk about the Netherlands. Dutch entrance into the Atlantic world is part of the larger story of religious and imperial conflict in the early modern era. In the 1500s, Calvinism, one of the major Protestant reform movements, began to take root in the Spanish Netherlands, and the new sect desired its own state. Holland was established in 1588 as a Protestant nation, but would not be recognized by Spain until 1648. Determined to imperil Protestantism, King Philip of Spain assembled a massive force of over 30,000 men and 130 ships and sent this giant navy known as the Spanish Armada towards England and Holland. But the skilled English navy and a maritime storm destroyed the fleet in 1588. The defeat of the Spanish Armada was only one part of a larger but undeclared war between Protestantism and Catholicism. Quickly, the Dutch inserted themselves into the Atlantic colonial race. They distinguished themselves as commercial leaders in the 17th century, as their mode of colonization relied on powerful corporations. The Dutch East India Company, chartered in 1602 to trade in Asia, and the Dutch West India Company, established in 1621 to colonize and trade in the Americas. While employed by the Dutch East India Company in 1609, the English sea captain Henry Hudson explored New York Harbor and the river that now bears his name. Like many explorers of the time, Hudson was actually seeking a northwest passage to Asia and its wealth. That's why he was employed by the Dutch East India Company instead of the Dutch West India Company. But the wealth of coveted beaver pelts alone provided a reason to claim it for the Netherlands. The Dutch named their colony New Netherlands, and it served as a fur trading outpost for the expanding and powerful Dutch West India Company. They expanded in the area to create other trading posts where their exchange with local Algonquian and Iroquois people brought the Dutch and native peoples into alliance. The Dutch became a commercially powerful rival to Spain. Amsterdam soon became a trade hub for all the Atlantic world. As we conclude our look at French and Dutch colonization in the New World, it's clear that these two European powers pursued a markedly different path than their Spanish counterparts. Centered along major rivers like the St. Lawrence and Hudson, their colonial ventures were driven not by the desire for territorial domination or religious conquest, but by commerce, particularly the lucrative fur trade. Because of this economic focus, both France and the Netherlands fostered more cooperative relationships with Native American tribes. Rather than overwhelming native societies through force, they engaged in diplomacy, trade partnerships, and even intermarriage. French voyageurs learned native languages and fought alongside indigenous allies, while Dutch merchants established settlements like New Amsterdam that thrived on exchange and tolerance. Yet these colonies were not immune to the larger forces of imperial competition. Alliances with Native American nations sometimes pulled European powers into long-standing tribal conflicts, and ultimately both New France and New Netherland would be overtaken by more aggressive colonial empires, particularly the British.